Now, talking about contraception, we've been hearing the views of some young people, three young Kenyans who are in discussion with our reporter, our roving reporter, Brian Moshiri, asking them their views on a number of issues regarding contraceptives. Here's what they said.
And I am in studio to discuss, get this, contraceptives with my peers. In studio, I have Emma Swa, who is a vlogger who specializes in education, which is sexual. And I'm also joined by Joy Nkirote and Hussein Mahamud, who are both my peers and are here to fuel the conversation. And we'll get straight into it. And Emma, I'm gonna just start with you because you do this kind of thing usually on YouTube. So why would you do this? Mbona unafanya kitu kai, sex education, vlogging on sex? Why?
So the reason why I chose sex education, I'll give you two reasons. The first reason is when it comes to sex, men and women, there's usually a disconnect between that because you find that we view sex in different ways. We don't view it in the same way. You know, sex to a man means it's completely different to how a woman will view sex and what it means to them. So there's just that disconnect and there's always that conflict even in terms of satisfaction and what have you. What pleases a man might not necessarily please a woman. So because of that disconnect and lack of connection, I just felt the need to actually just come and express each side and so that we can find a middle balance, like just meet in the middle. And then the other reason why I chose this topic is because there's also a gap between sex education and entertainment. You'll find that, for example, most people will get their education from music, and music is purely entertainment. So like you'll find people rapping about sex and what have you, and it does not give like the information that is necessarily needed. So there's that gap between sex education, like people who really are vocal about sex, they do it in sort of entertainment and it is not that detailed and in depth. And then you'll find the people who do it who are sex educators, they don't necessarily, it's not entertaining. And when you want to attract young people, when you want them to view, when you want them to learn, you need to add that aspect of entertainment. So it was just to bridge the gap between entertainment and sex education so that more people will be drawn into it and more people can learn and, you know.
Okay, and perhaps let me just bring in the other guys, Joy and Hussein. Perhaps I can start with you, Hussein. Do we have institutions that have wameongelelea kuhusu contraceptives? Do young people know about contraceptives? Are we aware?
Not enough awareness has been done.
Okay.
You see, the world loves sex, eh? People love to have sex because it's fun, pleasure, and people want to enjoy sex. But the point is, sex comes with a lot of things. There are byproducts, there are products that are maybe anticipated, others that are not anticipated. Children are involved, STDs are involved, that's sexually transmitted diseases. And that's why when having sex, safety should be the first priority.
Okay.
So awareness might have been raised. There are organizations that give contraceptives for free. Some of them give awareness, but certainly with the young population, not enough has been done.
Unajua watu wenye washaitumia any form of contraception, like wanajua, do your peers, your friends, wanajua contraceptives ni nini and what it actually does for you? Is there enough education out there?
Okay, I feel like we know, but we really don't know enough. I know of an institution, I know of Maristops.
Yes.
They have these conferences and such. But then the big question is, how many people are they reaching out to? We have the knowledge, yes, but how much knowledge do we have? So I feel like my peers, my friends, myself, we really know about contraceptives. But do we know it all? I think when the word contraceptives is mentioned to someone, this is something that you'll want to go back to Google and know something about it or more about it. So I think the awareness is there, but it's not enough. We still have milestones to go.
Yeah, we have institutions to kind of look up to.
Yeah.
Yes, just take it up,
I think young people are aware of contraceptives. They know contraceptives exist.
We're happy.
But I don't think they use them. I really don't think they use them. I think they know they're contraceptives, but I don't think they use them.
So in your view, why would someone just leave themselves out like that? I mean,
the reason why they don't use contraceptives is because they're not properly informed, you know, because you hear there's these side effects, you know, you might get fat, you might not have children again, and it will be, there's just all this things surrounding contraceptives, and it's not actually accurate information, you know. So the people are just scared to use contraceptives because they're like, what if I use contraceptives and then I never have a baby, or I become infertile? What if I use contraceptives and then I gain weight, you know? So most people just rely on this unreliable form of contraception, like the pull out and safe days, and then you have some people relying heavily on P2. They rely heavily on P2, but no one is considering a long-term contraceptives because they're not informed.
Yes.
Probably the information, the use might be restricted by how the society views it,
Yeah, true.
the availability, the efficacy, and now comes back to the point of safety. As I told you initially, sex is sacred. That's why you should have criteria to define what a contraceptive is. Maybe about the efficacy, the side effects, availability, affordability. If I can't afford maybe a condom, which might be expensive in my capacity as a young person, I'll not go for it. When I have the coitus interruptus, which is the withdrawal method, as she said, that is probably the widest used method.
Yeah.
But there are guys, if I may just interject, that say, mimi siwezi tumia condom. I just don't feel sex when I'm using a condom.
That's why I'm
Do they have a point? Wako na point wakisema hivyo?
Yes, they have a point. Because contraceptives ideally on the use should be on mutual agreement by the partners. You cannot go and have sex with your wife, let's say, and you want to use a condom and she's not comfortable with it. That will be very unfair. That's why the concept of now mutual agreement and mutual pleasure comes in. It is true, maybe to some extent condoms reduce the sexual pleasure. It might be true and they really have a point. That's now when it comes to the information now, and you will go for the options that are available to use. It's not must that you use a condom.
Joy?
I also feel like
Yes.
when we are talking about contraceptives, what are you looking forward to prevent? I feel like mostly girls, when you're looking for contraceptives, you're thinking about pregnancy. But when you're talking about sex, it really isn't about pregnancy. There is more to do with that, something more that you should keep yourself safe from, like for instance, HIV, STDs. But that is not the first thing that clicks to us, to our minds when we think about sex. We're just thinking of, oh, pregnancy, I can't deal with that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll go for it to avoid pregnancy. Then you forget the other things that you should also be preventing.
Let me just throw something inside there, because I recently personally did a story for NTV that showcases the fact that young people in Kenya would rather deal with a sexually transmitted disease than a pregnancy.
Yeah.
Why do you think, in your capacity, Emma, why do you think this is the scenario, that I would rather deal with a sexually transmitted disease than a pregnancy as a young person in Kenya? Why?
Because we all know sex is still seen as a taboo. So, you know, with STDs, I can suffer in silence. No one has to know. There's that confidentiality. I can just go to the hospital, get my medication, get healed, and what have you. But then with pregnancy, you can't hide it. Everyone will know you had sex.
They argue it's permanent.
It's permanent. Everyone will know you had sex, and nobody wants that, you see, because everybody wants their parents to think they're virgins. Everybody wants to be the holy virgin, the, you know, sacred, all white, and what have you. So people would rather, with STDs, no one will know. So it's easier.
I'm going to turn this into a class, and mtainua tu mikono. Genuinely tu. Juu hata mimi nitainua. Ni wangapi hapa nyinyi wote sisi sote wanne, ni wangapi tushai have a direct keen sex conversation with our parents? Miss Jai, so sitainua mkono. I've never.
What are we talking about when we talk of
Like,
sex
have you
conversation?
ever had a scenario with your parents where you actually sat down with your parents and they let you know that, okay, so there's something known as sex?
Yeah, and they told me there is sex, and if you have it, you'll get pregnant. If you get pregnant, you'll put shame to yourself. So avoid, abstain, and such. Then they tell you, like, I think contraceptives is something that just came up. It isn't something that my mother talked to me about. I think it was a topic that was had somewhere. Then she mentioned, and she was like, yeah, kuna vitu zinaitwa contraceptives. But in case of an emergency, that is when you use them, you see? So I don't
emergency kind of thing.
Yes, I don't like rape, such things. I don't feel like sex education is something that is taught deeply in an African home setting. I feel like it's something that is key.
Hussein, perhaps if I can just bring you on board, is it important for us to have a contraceptive conversation with my child? I mean, let me give you the thought of an African parent. Hussein, mimi ni baba yako. Nimekuongelesha kuhusu condom. Or umekuja ukani approach ukaniuliza, Dad, I'd like to know about what is a condom, what does it do, what does this, hizi vitu zina entail nini? Immediately as an African parent, nishaanza kujua kijana wangu Hussein ashaanza ku have sex.
Because he knows out of curiosity, I might try and see what that condom is used for. That is what the highly conservative African culture means.
Okay.
Personally, I've never had a sex conversation with my parents not at any point, because of the conservativeness of the nature and of African culture and tradition that we have. Probably the parent, the first thing he thinks of, if I start telling him out of curiosity, he will start go and see for himself what a condom is used for, how it feels to have sex. Without that one,
Yeah.
Ideally, what also happens is there is also the aspect of religion in it.
Yes.
It is a sin for me. The parents knows from the way I was raised from when I was a young child. Sex you should only have sex with someone you are married to, your legally married wife only. So everything else is a sin religiously and also socially because of our African culture.
Emma, perhaps if I can also now drag you to the conversation. I personally go to a church that talks to me strictly about abstinence. Thou shalt not have sex until you're married. And it's that, and if you do that, you have sinned and you are away from the ways of God.
I think when they set it up, they probably set it up to keep the young people safe and what have you, but it's becoming unrealistic to some extent because nobody is abstaining.
Well, there are some people who will argue that they actually are abstaining.
I mean, I think in their head they're just trying their best to protect us, and in their head that's what protection is, but at the end of the day that is not realistic because people are having sex and they're having unsafe sex, they're contacting STDs, they're getting pregnant, they're resorting to unsafe abortions and what have you, and that in reality is not working. And then when you bring up the topic of contraceptives, then they start thinking, oh my God, my daughter is having sex. So what they want to do is they want to tell you sex is really bad. If you have sex with a man, he will degrade you, he won't value you. So
atakuona wewe ni
atakudharau.
Joy, unakani kama kuna kitu unataka kuleta.
That's the only sex education we get, atakudharau.
Just to add on that,
Yes, Joy.
whether you teach them or not, the world will teach them. It's better you do it yourself as a parent. Let them know what you stand for, but allow them also the chance to pick what they want to. Wakisuffer the consequences, it was their choice. Let them deal with it.
Okay.
Also to girls and boys out there, abstinence is not a sin. I think our society is making it look like now abstaining is... Why are you abstaining?
Yes, yes.
Simbaya. If that is what you want to stand for, please go with it. Abstain. Also to girls, contraceptives isn't only a prevention for pregnancy. Look in deeper details about your body, your health. Stop trusting men, as in, ati huyu ananipenda, as in, wewe, utakuwa disappointed. So think about it deeper than just pregnancy.
Okay. Emma, perhaps you can close this. I mean, you're in this industry. You do this a lot
So
on YouTube.
What I would love parents to know is the fact that we are not against what you're teaching young people. If you're teaching them to abstain, you're teaching them to wait until marriage, you're teaching them to, abide by the religion and what have you, it's okay. It's your child, you have a vision for them, obviously you love them, but leave a room of doubt to the fact that they might be having sex. Just have that in your mind. They're probably having sex. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying most of them are probably having sex. So have that conversation with them.
Emma, a parent is perhaps watching you right now and is like looking at their daughter or their son who's in campus and is like, "Iyo ni ukweli." So, in finality, what you're saying is, let's have a genuine conversation with our children.
Yes.
Let's have a genuine conversation with everyone as an institution.
Yeah.
I gave you before.
Also,
yes.
And don't come to me with that tone. You're having sex.
As you have that conversation, avoid judging and avoid being biased. Be open. Be open to their thoughts. Like, no, like that parent who is looking at their son like, why are you looking at your son like that? This is just a conversation.
Just open up a conversation and
stop being judgmental. Acha conclude vitu jambiwa.
Vitu jambiwa.
Yeah, exactly.
Just ensure your child is
So
safe.
just have an open conversation about it.
Hussein says ensure your child is safe,
And
number one.
Absolute safety lies in abstinence.
Thank you very much, guys.
Wow, a really fascinating conversation there with these three young guys, Hussein, Emma, Joy, and led by Brian. Amazing. Can't remember what I would have been speaking to my mother about when it comes to contraceptives.